Hey, Mark.
Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, good, good. Ready for a new day, ready to start crack-a-lacking.
Yeah, it's a Friday.
I'm excited. Yeah, I already had my our company. We have a webinar every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Not a webinar, a go-to Zoom meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we already had ours at 8 o'clock, and we're looking like we're lots of good opportunities in the pipeline. I'm excited.
Good.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. So Kristen was trying to get logged on and her internet was being bad this morning.
Oh, Lord.
Like, of course, the one day you actually need it. So
I'm telling you. So I'm going to see how best to do this thing. So if I want to share, this is the one that really needs to go down. How do I do this?
yeah, and basically we'll tell everybody to toggle to the speaker view. So you can kind of hover in the upper right and it has the option for speaker view instead of gallery.
Okay.
And then once you share screen, it should just be showing your screen and then you.
Okay, I'm trying to see how best to do this so I can easy transition.
Yeah.
That does not work. So I can move this. Okay. All right.
Yay. I rebooted it all.
Oh, good. Whew.
Good morning. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. Hi, Phil.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fabulous. How are you?
Great. Thank you. It's always fun to do a kickoff when your computer says reboot and your internet goes down.
Trying to figure out how people put a picture in the.
Yeah, there's an option somewhere to add a photo to your profile.
Start video, video settings. Do you have to have an account probably?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Uh-oh.
Are there? Well, there you are.
Morning, Phil.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's a Friday. I'm excited. Ready for the weekend.
Nice.
That's been a busy week for me too.
Yeah. So we're supposed to have another 17 join us this morning. So it's a nice crowd.
That is.
Hopefully we're all awake.
Did a great job yesterday, Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you for the prep. So we can schedule a meeting then with Noel whenever you feel like you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I may have some stuff going on here. That's why I'm trying to figure out a way to put a picture up there because I may end up having to do some things.
So if you hover on your screen, there's a little 3 dots that comes up.
Yeah.
And on mine, it was giving the option to add a profile picture. It might be because I'm logged in.
Yeah. I think you're right. I got to be logged in because that's not an option for me.
Okay.
Thank
Well, we'll take your name.
you. Thank you.
So Mark, you're set with your PowerPoint that you're gonna display on your own, and you put those pictures in it?
I did.
Okay, awesome. So if something goes wrong, I do have your PowerPoint and I can present it, but we'll leave it as we practiced.
All right, well, and just the initial part of getting it set up, hopefully I get that right.
It should be just a matter of sharing.
Yeah.
If all goes as should. Morning, E-Jane.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining.
Oh, I'm excited about it. I've already been talking about you guys this morning. We're in Germany, so it's good.
Cool. Thank you.
No,
we
thank you.
Pardon?
I said, no, thank you.
You're welcome. So I know it's 10 o'clock. I think I'd like to wait just a couple more minutes because we're expecting several more people. And I'm going to turn the light off above my head. I feel like Christina's actually looking at us and smiling.
That's the goal.
Morning, Elise.
Hey, good morning. How are y'all?
Doing well, thanks. How are you?
Doing pretty good.
Good. Morning, Marlene.
Good morning.
Where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Smyrna, Georgia.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so we'll say 10:03, we'll get started. And Mark, I will just chat with you here, and in case there's, I'll send you a personal message. If you're kind of running close to time limit, just so you know.
Okay, no worries.
So I just typed in there. Hopefully it popped up and then you'll.
Hey, good morning.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Nice background there,
Yeah.
Kayla. Yeah.
Kalia, are you actually there? Or are you there in your mind?
In my mind.
I like it. Thanks for joining. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our kickoff for STEM Careers in Georgia. I'm Kristen Boskin, and I am the director of the Rural Teacher Training Initiative at the Georgia Bioed Institute. And you'll also see Megan Heafy on here, and she is the Equipment Depot Manager and our Scientific Specialist. And we together make up the Institute, and then we are part of a larger family called the Center for Global Health Innovation, which also has as a sister company Georgia Bio, GHC3, which stands for the Global Health Crisis Coordination Center. So they've been super active with the response to COVID. There's also the Global Health, Georgia Global Health Alliance that is part of that, and then the Innovation Center as well. So we're happy to see you here today. And the Georgia Bioed Institute, our main goal is to help to create and fortify the most robust life sciences centered workforce. And we do that through STEM education. So we have Mr. Mark Panton here from Lab Design and Supply to kick off. He's been so supportive of the Bioed Institute. Anyone that attended our symposium training for the rural teachers in January, Mark's company, Lab Design and Supply, supported kits to go back into classrooms. So he really follows through and is active on his support, and we're really appreciative of that. So Mark is going to speak to us this morning about his journey through life, from education to where he is today, and then also what he's actually used from his career, from his schooling in his career today. And then he'll also move into some of the unique jobs that his company offers to those who are interested in the life sciences. So Mark is the CEO of Laboratory Design and Supply. It's physically located in Buford, but the company has a national presence. He is, Lab Design and Supply is a full service design and construction company that provides services to all types of laboratories in the United States. He's also the CEO of Panton Equity Partners, which is a private equity firm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's responsible for operational oversight of portfolio companies. That company works with CEOs and CFOs to develop growth strategy and ensure established targets are achieved. So Mark has a really unique background in that it's a peripheral life sciences, and he's brought his whole business aspect to that. So you'll get to hear a little bit about that in his presentation. He was the Chief Technical Director at the Ministry of Agriculture in Jamaica and directed the operations of 6 departments. So R&D, Veterinary Services Division, Plant Quarantine, Fisheries, Project Management, and Public Gardens within the Technical Directorate, with a budget of US dollars of $14.5 million and approximately 600 employees. There, he was responsible for ensuring their contribution to the ministry's strategic objectives and its pursuit of agricultural growth and viability. He has also founded, led, or managed several businesses in agriculture, food and beverage, and hospitality. He has an MBA from Northern Caribbean University. He's got a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine from the University of Florida and a Bachelor of Science from Cornell University up in New York. So Mark is going to join us today, and we get to start with a little video about Lab Design and Supply to give you guys an overview. Mark, did I get all that right so far?
Boy, I was wondering who you were talking about, but sounds interesting.
It's a good guy, huh? Okay, so I'm gonna, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And show you guys the video. All right, so Mark, you can take over.
Alrighty, let's see. If you can, I think you have to stop sharing first.
So remember last time when I had all that trouble? I can't find my stop sharing again. But you should be, oh, here I go. Got it.
There we go, there we go. And I will go ahead and share my screen now. And let me know if you can see this. Are you seeing the presentation there?
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. I'm happy to hear that. And let me set up my screen myself. All right, so good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. It is always a pleasure to work with educators, to work with folks who help schools, develop schools, have anything to do with education. As far as I'm concerned, you're all my heroes. This is huge. Without you guys, let's face it, we wouldn't have innovation, we wouldn't have technology, we wouldn't have any development that would move us to the next frontier of livelihood and life in general. So I salute all of you, and I hope you continue to do all the amazing work that you do. As a matter of fact, just very briefly, that is basically the background for our tagline. Our tagline is better labs for your best performance. We totally acknowledge that it's the researchers, the PhD students, the folks who are in the labs who are, coming up with products that are making the world a better place. We just want to make sure that you're comfortable while you're doing it. And that's the entire purpose of what we do here at Laboratory Design and Supply. So today I wanted to talk to you about a few things, just 3 things in general. One is I wanted to give you a quick overview of Laboratory Design and Supply. That video did a great job. And again, thanks again for the introduction, Kristen. Megan, always a pleasure working with you, and pleasure to meet others that I met this morning on the video, on the Zoom. I also want to talk to you very briefly about some of our laboratory design trends that we're seeing, especially in light of COVID-19. And importantly, talking about some job opportunities, which to me is absolutely critical, because as we grow, We're constantly looking for, you know, amazing talent who want to be a part of this great industry. So let's dive right into it. So as was said in the video, and I'm not going to spend too much time here, we are truly a full service laboratory industry provider. We like to say you give us 4 walls and we're going to provide you with the exact laboratory that you need. So we will put in there everything that once we give you that key, all you need to do is go ahead and start doing your research, and we're excited about that. So obviously we do the designing, start literally from, we get folks sending us scribbles on napkins, and we'll start from there, no problem at all. We will consult with you, and this is all free of cost, of course. We will plan all the logistics around your laboratory. We will identify the appropriate material that you need. We will install it. If you have a lab already, we will renovate it, we will relocate it, we'll expand it. Anything laboratory, that's what we do. But just to put a caveat that a lot of people think that we also supply the consumables, the test tubes and the Petri dishes, the agars, or agars, depending on what you say. We don't do that normally. What we do is actually prepare the hard stuff that allows you to use the soft stuff. So we don't do a lot of the consumables at all. Excuse me. And by the way, if you do have any questions, feel free to, you know, drop something on the line or let Christine or Megan know so that we can answer them appropriately. So we did mention we have over 10,000 products, and that is very true. We have quite an extensive array of products. Of course, the primary thing being our casework line, which can be involve materials from metal, wood, phenolic, you know, plastic laminate, polypropylene, obviously the countertops, the fume hoods, faucets, seating, whether it's modular, whether it's fixed, it doesn't really matter. We are in a position to provide you with everything that you're going to need for your turnkey lab solution. And for full details on that, you can always check the website. So we are very pleased and very honored that we've worked with, you name any large Fortune 500 company, we've probably done work with them, including, you know, folks like Coca-Cola, obviously. We've done Koch brothers, we've done Home Depot, we've done Turner, Tesla. We have done a lot of universities across the entire United States and Canada. We've worked at NASA. I'm even proud to say that in Texas, we just built the largest walk-in fume hood in the entire state of Texas, which was for NASA, by the way. So again, let me just pat myself on the back for that. No, it was really fun. It was a great project, and I enjoy working with these folks, again, who are changing the world and making the world a better place. So it is our pleasure to do that. In terms of where we normally play, as we say, if you are doing testing, if you're doing quality assurance, if you're doing research, all of those require a laboratory. And we are right there to provide exactly what you need. Now, we normally, our specialty is wastewater treatment plants. We like to work with, you know, what we call the recession-proof areas. And so the reality is that no matter what happens in the world, you still have to make sure you have safe drinking water. You still have to treat the sewage and keep your people safe. So we always like to work with our wastewater plants. So as they expand, as they grow, as they upgrade, we're right there with them. And that's right now about 30 to 35% of our entire revenue base comes from the water treatment facilities. Outside of that, we do a lot of industrial companies. And you'll notice, interestingly enough, a lot of people, when they think lab, they think healthcare. Healthcare actually is probably our smallest sector because we have had, it was so small, we lumped it in with government. So we don't do a lot of, you know, medical facilities, dental facilities. We've started to do a lot more dental recently because of COVID-19, but it's not our largest part. We more work with a lot of the food service companies, and we said the wastewater treatment companies. And obviously education is extremely important to us. So we work primarily with universities. We tend to stay away from the K through 12 sector. It's just for purely business purposes, the margins are a little bit thin on those. So that's the only reason why. So what are some of the trends that we're seeing in the industry right now? Well, just as to give you an idea of what the laboratory furniture subsector is like, for the entire, that size of that market in the US today is close to $2 billion US. And of course, we are just a small fraction of that, and we're looking to grow as part of that. But it's expected that we're going to have growth. And even though these numbers came out last year, really, from IBIS World, I suspect that the growth in these numbers is going to be a little bit greater now, especially because the world was turned upside down with COVID. There's going to be a lot more preparation in terms of planning for the next pandemic, making sure that we have the ability to, say, mobile laboratories, for example, so you can ramp up if there is an outbreak very quickly. So I think that the growth in terms of laboratory furniture is going to be a little bit greater than that was predicted from these numbers, but it's still a very good growth opportunity area. There's a lot of R&D spend, as you can see, that's taking place, and that will forever be. The reality is that without companies spending on R&D, the company will die. So R&D is critical, and that is forever going to continue driving the demand for additional laboratory space. So we're expecting, obviously, fairly decent annual growth. It is a fairly mature industry. It is not a young industry, which is why the numbers are pretty low. However, you'll notice, and a part of the reason why it's also mature, you'll notice the number of businesses, for example, that you see here. This is actually, it's trending downwards, and that's usually a sign of a mature business, mature market. And what that means is that you're having consolidation in the industry. So, for example, there is a private equity company by the name of Technical Solutions Holdings that is acquiring every certification and testing company in the space that they can get their hands on. So where it was before, a number of individual companies, they're now literally ramped up to 200 individual companies, but belonging to one single company. So there is definite consolidation. Now, what that means for me personally is one of two things. Either I get busy buying companies or I get busy dying. And so I'm looking to getting busy buying. And there's a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of small companies that are available. And I suspect that's even going to be more so again after this COVID epidemic that we're facing right now. So why is this happening? Very briefly, just a few things. Obviously, no question about it, there will always be an increased demand for research and development activities. As you can see here, companies are always looking to differentiate themselves, so they want to invest in new products. They're looking for ways that they can stay ahead of their competitors. So the only way you do that is through R&D. And if you're going to do R&D, guess what? You're going to need a lab, and guess what? We're right here to help you. So that's what it is. Like I said, there is a rising demand for advanced and improved laboratory casework. Now, I say that with a little bit of a caveat, because the technology and advancement in laboratory casework over the last 20 years has been minimal. It has not changed that much. I can think of perhaps 4 different products that were introduced within that period of time. And it shows that it's pretty stable, which is good. So there's not a lot of volatility, but at the same time, what we are seeing is that researchers now who are tending to trend toward the millennials are not used to the older, stodgy laboratories. They want an aesthetically appealing laboratory. They want something that's beautiful, modular, ergonomically sexy, and that's sort of things that are allowing us now to come up with new lines within the laboratory casework space. And of course, as we mentioned, people are looking towards greener items, more modular items. They're dealing with sanitation, not wanting to waste products. So that's driving the direction and the growth within the industry as we speak. So let's talk about some of the design trends. And there are really 5 areas that I want to talk about very briefly. Really, we're looking at the aesthetics, flexible and adaptable laboratories, obviously going greener, being very socially conscious, design for technology. Technology is driving the world without question, and social spaces. People want to interact, share ideas, as opposed to being secretive around their ideas, which was the way labs were back in the day. That's definitely shifting towards more open, collaborative approaches in laboratory design. So before you get started, and this is for those who might have an interest in laboratory design, just a very high-level approach, and this alone really could be its own presentation in terms of preparing to go into designing a laboratory, but there are just a few things you should keep in mind. Obviously, the most important thing is to know the purpose of the lab. What is the lab going to be doing? Is it going to be a wet lab versus a dry lab? Are you going to be doing more data-centric lab and more computer-centric lab, as opposed to dealing with more gases and acids? And you're going to need more fume hoods, etc. What are the materials you're working with? If you're going to be using some very heavy acids, that is going to be critical in terms of your material choice. So you're going to need to understand what the purpose of the lab is. Is it an open or closed lab? And as I said, the trend now is moving toward these more open labs as opposed to closed labs, which is basically a cubicular lab, which is a little bit different nowadays. Understanding the workflow and the workflow process. What you don't want is a situation, for example, where you're going to A to get something, then you have to go across to B to get something else, and then come back to C to implement the process you just got from B. So you have to understand the workflow and make sure that your lab is designed with that in mind. You want to identify the equipment is needed. So if you were looking, for example, at a very sensitive piece of equipment, that vibration was very important. You had to minimize vibration. Then you wouldn't want to put that on a modular piece of furniture, for example, because it's on wheels, it's going to shake, and that would totally throw the results off. And as I mentioned, understand the materials. And the most important thing I can tell you is that you do not go into any laboratory until you have entire, complete drawings down to literally 1/16 of an inch, if possible. Was there a question? I'm sorry, I heard something there.
No,
okay.
There's no question. We just had a little background noise.
No worry, I'll just keep going. All right, so let's talk first about social spaces, and that's important. This is a very large growing trend. As I mentioned, it's going away from this concept of individualistic thought to shared thought, collaborative approach, to sharing ideas. And so when you design your labs, you want to consider things like break rooms and lounge areas. You want to establish places where people can congregate and they can talk to one another, share their ideas, even have things in the room that stimulate thought, which would be very helpful. And that could be something as simple as a painting, which is very important. And I like this drawing because, as you can see here, for example, this door would have led into a laboratory, but here's a common space now, and they're now sharing ideas and whiteboarding ideas. And that's kind of what is very common. Yesterday, I got a call from a gentleman up in Maryland. They're building a 4,000 square foot facility with a number of smaller labs, which they plan to lease out to individual researchers. But in the middle of that entire lab is this huge, very accommodating, open congregational space. And that's entirely designed so that you can go out, leave your lab, and be able to share thoughts and ideas. And that's definitely the trend and the way going forward. I just want to mention this thing about lots of light, and I'll just say that very quickly. You know, back in the day when people look at videos and movies of older laboratories, it was always dark, it was closed, there were no windows, it was all this bubbling and all this, you know, crazy thing, Frankenstein kind of concept. That is so out the window right now. Nobody does that anymore. Almost every picture I'm going to show you, you'll see that light is critical. It is clear study that people get more stimulated, more excited. The thought process improves with better lighting, better ventilation, better views, by the way, outside of that lighting through these windows, for example. So that's something that is definitely part of the trend going forward. So I want to talk a little bit about being flexible and adaptable. And I notice I put flexible and adaptable because technically those are two different things. When we think of flexible is usually our short-term thing. So what you're seeing here in this diagram is actually what we consider to be flexible. So let's say you needed to do a quick, short reconfigure because you just brought in a brand new piece of equipment, and therefore you needed to move these tables, which are all, as you can see, on wheels, and to make space for that one piece of equipment. You'll notice that there's a lot of these hanging connectivity cords from the roof. Again, so you can very easily adjust this entire presentation to accommodate a new piece of equipment, accommodate you know, an additional fume hood, for example. And that's what we call flexible, which is great, just more short-term change. But then we talk about adaptable, which is really more so for a longer term, more unpredictable change. So the best example I could use of that is, let's say that next door and you know, your neighboring labs are using vacuum pumps, right? So there is a possibility in the future you may have to add a vacuum pump. Well, that's not just something you put in. You have to leave enough space in your design to make sure that you can add that vacuum pump. So you, instead of using 100%, you might use only 95 or 90% of the space and save enough room for you to be able to adapt to large concepts. And along those lines, obviously, you know, you don't want to use centralized systems because as opposed to say, you know, individual vacuum pumps as an example, because it allows more flexibility to move those around when that time happens. So you need to be flexible and adaptable, allows you to reconfigure, allows you to basically change as the scenario changes. Greener, that goes without saying. The reality is that people are looking for ways in which you conserve energy. Simple things like just the bulbs you use in your lab. The idea of motion activated entry. So when you walk in, the lights turn on, you know, electricity comes to certain pieces of equipment. Obviously, you want to use better products. You want to make sure you're properly insulated. You want to, for example, the way you design your windows and your lighting so that you take advantage of heat during the winter, for example, or being able to add blinds and shades so that you can reduce the amount of heat that is coming into the building during the summer and therefore reduce your bill, making life a little easier. Obviously, recycled products where you can. I have to tell you, I'm not a big fan of recycled products when it comes to laboratories. Obviously, it doesn't help my bottom line, but it is a good idea nonetheless to use and recycle where you can. Aesthetics, I can't say enough about aesthetics. The generation of researchers is getting younger and younger, and they want vibrant, bright colors. I love this picture because it shows an unusually bright orange floor. It shows some amazing architecture. Just look at these diagonals and these lines with regards to bringing light in. It's sort of an appealing, in my mind, to a little bit of a younger generation, a generation that is excited to go in and do work, but at the same time is going to leave immediately as they finish doing something and go into that common area and go share their ideas with friends. So the other thing too is that if I went back to that picture on seating, the chair that I put in there, they're coming up with these very funky looking laboratory chairs that are very ergonomic, designed to, you know, strengthen your back and keep you straight and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of trend for that, and people are willing to pay more money. They're spending, you know, a little bit more, a couple $100 more on a chair because that chair allows them to stand or sit. You've seen the big tables where people get up and stand up. All those things are now becoming commonplace in laboratories, and we are just keeping up with that trend. And I think it's a good trend. It definitely, in my mind, stimulates thought and allows people to work at their best. And it complements our tagline again: we build better labs for your best performance. Technology. Obviously, the way how it was in the past, you know, you would go and you do your research and then you would leave your lab and you go back to your desk and you start to write furiously all your findings and all that kind of good stuff. Well, that's kind of out the window now. It is right then and there, not just for the purpose of recording your data and your results, but for the purpose of teaching. So we're finding, you know, fume hoods, for example, that have, you know, see-through sashes, so that you can be doing experiments on one side and your students are on the other side following along, for example. Obviously, as you can see here in this diagram here, this just allows you to easily bring forward your monitor and your keyboard, while at the same time having your hard drive being out of way, so it's not, you're not kicking it underneath a desk. So you have to be you know, factoring space for these kind of equipment. For technology, obviously technology is very critical. The ability to plug in, have a lot of people are walking with their cell phones, and you want to have their ability to, you know, charge their cell phones while they're there. So it's easy access to all these plugs. The way you lay out the furniture, absolutely important. Even just something as commonplace as where they're going to write up their write-up stations. You want to make sure that they're about 4 feet wide as an example. You want to make sure it has enough space for your knees, so that when you sit down, you don't have a problem about, you know, like I said, kicking something under the desk. So all of these little very basic things, but you are now developing not just with material in mind, but you're thinking about technology in mind and how that person is going to use that technology without interfering with their actual research project. So let's talk quickly about some job opportunities in the space, and there are really 3 that I want to focus on. One is a cost estimator, the second is a design engineer or a drafter, and finally is an installer. So this is going to be all available. I'm not going to go through all the details of what each one does. I'll just give a high level overview of it. Obviously, a cost estimator is very critical because that's the person that when the salesperson goes and says, okay, we can do your lab for you. What do you need in there? And the designer, oh, I've gone wrongly. Sorry, here we go. The designer, puts it together. It's given straight to the cost estimator. They have to have an understanding of the products. They have to know who the vendors are. They have to be able to negotiate so they can get the best pricing for your customer. They have to be able to give full details on that cost estimate, down to shipping and everything that's very important for the person who is creating the budget to make a decision if they want to move forward. So that person, that cost estimator, is very important. They have to work closely with the designer, closely with the client, closely with the sales rep, and be able to put something in very quick order. A lot of these folks that come to us are like, we need a quote and we need it tomorrow. But you have a 20,000 square foot lab. Yeah, we need a quote tomorrow. That's not uncommon. And so the cost estimator has to be quick. They have to understand. And as you can see, they get paid pretty well. This is a huge growth area, by the way. The average job rate across all jobs is about 5%. This one is growing at 9%, or predicted to grow at 9% between 2018 and 2028. In terms of some of your skills that are required for this, we prefer that you have a lot of experience within the construction space. And the reason being is that you have to know how to read blueprints, for example. You have to understand what different aspects of casework are, what the different products are, what is the best product for it, and how to get the best price, and how to deal with the vendors. As we said, you're going to be working with Excel a lot, obviously, so you need to be very proficient in that. And you have to be able to multitask. You will have easily, 3, 4, 5, 6 things that you have to, projects that you're going to have to create a cost estimate for and do it very quickly. And so you're going to meet strict deadlines and strong problem solving skills, absolute critical. And what I mean by that is, as a cost estimator, you may see something that doesn't make sense from the, the architect's standpoint matched against his pickoff. And so you're going to have to figure out, okay, what do I need to do about this and how do I solve it? So cost estimator, very important in our business. Obviously, without them, our salespeople would not be able to do what they can do right now. Design engineer, drafter, very critical. You're putting together all the sketches. We have all our customers sign off on every single sketch. That's how we move forward with any project. They have to agree with it. And as I mentioned, this goes down literally to 1/16 of an inch. It makes a difference. 1/16 of an inch can throw an entire design off. It can throw an installation where it will not fit just by that amount. So it's very important that the designer is extremely detail oriented, as you can see here. That's very important. Strong critical thinking is again very important then, because you have to come up with that design not only based upon what the customer wants, but you have to advise that customer and say, listen, I know what you want, but I'm going to tell you from a design perspective, it doesn't work. And so I'm going to show you what your alternatives are. And again, this is all a lot of math, as I mentioned. You have to know to convert from, we get quotes or drawings from Europe. You better be able to convert from one system to the next, convert from inches to whatever else. And there's a lot of math that's involved. And obviously you have to have a technical skill, because you should be very much CAD oriented or BIM oriented, if you're familiar with that software. So technical skills, absolutely important for this job. Now the installer, in my mind, as important as those two are to me, this to me as the business owner is the most important job by far. And I say that for two reasons. One is, if your installation messes up, it looks bad on the company. So that's the last thing they're going to see, is the quality of the work. And they're going to see every day they come into the lab, every single day. Number two is, you have to interact with my customer. You have to get sign off from my customer. All of our installers have a sheet that they're required to give to the client. And that job is not complete until the client completes that sheet, which has 10 questions on the installer's performance. And they have to sign off. So if the attitude of the installer is a problem, they can note it. And we pay our installer based upon the results of these questionnaires. because they are the representative of the company at the very end. That is the last bit of the food that you're going to eat, and that's the last taste you're going to have in your mouth. So it's very important that they be really amazing at what they do. The ironic part is that this one actually doesn't require as much school skill, let's put it that way, as the others. But to me, it's so important. So there's some soft skills, which I'll talk about in a minute, that are critical as part of this. You notice that I put in here strong customer service skills. That I cannot overemphasize. You represent the company and you're the last person to talk to my customer. You have to leave them with a great taste. So I wanted to show you very quickly what happens if you have a bad installation. So we had an actual case, and this has happened to us. I'm embarrassed to say, but it's real, and it happens. We had our installer, by the way, is an amazing installer. He literally never gets anything less than a 9 from any of his clients. Literally, ever since I've known him, he's an amazing individual and knows what he's doing. He was out dealing with a personal matter, but we had to meet a deadline for a client, and we got a referral for an installer. And we said, you know what, we got to do it. We're going to take this installer. And we put him on the job to install this products. Now, these products, phenolic, epoxy, polypro, those are not typical wood, that you use in millwork. It is hard to work with. It's hard to cut, hard to shape, hard to adjust. So you have to know what you're doing. So let me show you some of the results of this failed installation. So as you can see here, this is supposed to be the edge, and this clearly your countertop must aesthetically match the top. I mean, this is what you're seeing. And by the way, these pictures weren't taken by me. This is the client taking the picture to chastise us for what we did wrong. Needless to say, we had to send our installer back in and redo the entire project. We did it at our cost, obviously, and we're able to salvage that relationship. However, you'll see that this is critical. Here's the same picture again. This just looks absolutely awful. That is not what we want to see in an installation. It must look pristine. It must be pretty. It must be precise. Like I said, 1/16 of an inch is a problem. We certainly don't want to see that as a finishing touch. This is not finished. It's just completely wrong what he did here with his gluing, basically. Aesthetics are important. Notice that the center of the window is right here. The center of the cabinet should match the center of the window. That's just basic aesthetics that we stick to. This is so off, I don't even understand how he could have installed this, but he did. And so that was a problem. Again, he left this with a huge gap, and this is the backsplash of this countertop, and left it with a huge gap from the wall. This was one of the cabinets he installed, and you'll notice that this is certainly not leveled. Now, it may look small to you, but this makes a big difference, and you'll see why in a second. That was the result of his leveling. That is what we do not want to see. It must be flush. I mean, that is just, to me, common sense, but it is what it is. Again, same principle here. This just looks awful. He did a sloppy job. It was just terrible. Again, same principle here. And then finally, this one amazes me. One is, again, every seam should line up. This seam does not line up with this seam, and he clearly has left a big old, he didn't get it flush against the wall. So what you see here is just an ugly, ugly installation. We went back to the client. By the way, this client in this case was a government, it was a military base. Don't mess with military, make sure you do it right. So this one, we had to go in there and make sure we did it. We got it 100%. So that brings me finally just to some of the soft skills that I just would highlight very much so. And they're important not just in my mind for your life, but if you were to work with me, I tell you that as much as I pay attention to your resume, I start grilling you on questions that help me to answer these 3 points. One is attention to detail. You cannot be satisfied unless every detail is perfect. Literally, you must be that detailed. As you just saw, I mean, if you're not paying attention to the little things, it's going to be bad when you get to the big things. And so I cannot overemphasize this attention to detail. This concept of going above and beyond is so important to me. I should have put that one as number 1. I want to give you an example. My designer right now is, and I proudly say he's one of the most awesome people I know. And the reason he's awesome in what he does is because he goes above and beyond. An example I give is this. Somebody sends in their design, and any good designer can design, put together a design and send it back to the customer. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. You have done exactly what the customer wants. You provided it. My designer doesn't do that. He designs what the customer wants, and then he thinks about what are plausible alternatives that would make what the customer wants even better without being asked. Let me be clear on that. This is not me saying, hey, I want you to come up with this. This is what it is. And he'll come up with scenario A, scenario B, and scenario C. And he'll say, here's your drawing, but I would like to posit these three options, whether it's different material, whether it's a different design to create a little bit more ergonomic, improve the process flow, whatever it is. And the client then gets to say, wow, you know, I never thought about that. That's a great idea. I think I'm going to go with this. Or no, I like my design. I'm going to stick with my design. No problem. But what has he done? He has addressed what the customer wanted, but he went above and beyond. And I'm telling you, customers appreciate that, because when it comes back to it, they know full well that at the end of the day, when they come to us, they're not just getting service, they're getting service plus tax. They're getting much more. And that's the beauty of what we offer. And I cannot overemphasize that enough. I try to teach that to my children. They think I'm evil. It is what it is. So it goes on. And finally is treat customers as if they were the last customer in the world. Obviously, every customer has a choice. And it is so important that we do what we can for our customers. One simple example, we had a case just recently, literally 2 days ago, where a customer came back to us. We did nothing wrong. We sent to them in California. We've sent them a quote. We make it very clear in there that we do not include tax because we are not registered to collect tax in California. And it's clear as day on the invoice. But he got it, he came back to us and said, I want you to add tax into this because I need to get the tax back from my customer. And so I needed to add tax. So our guy who worked here was like, well, we can't do that. You know, we are not signed up, it's wrong. And so technically he's right? We're not in a position to do that, but the customer was adamant. It was a big old problem. And he was getting very upset about all of this. So it was escalated to my desk. And the first thing I asked was, well, how much was the invoice? And I found out the invoice was only $2,286. I said, well, how much is the tax? So the tax was $187. I said, hold on. So we're prepared to argue with our customer, potentially losing the customer over $187. Is that what I understand? Well, couldn't answer it because that's really what it was. I said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll create a dummy invoice for some other aspect that he has acquired from us for the purpose of this tax. And we'll send it in. It's $187. Do what we need to do for that customer, because I'm telling you, I spend way more than that just acquiring that customer. And you want to jeopardize and lose that customer for $187. I can't do that. And so I treat every customer as if they were the last, the only customer in this world. And I would encourage all my staff to do that. It's what I expect of them. And anybody who works with us will know that that's just simply our culture. We try to get it right and get it right the first time. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's me in a nutshell. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, we do have a couple. So we've got a decent crowd of high school teachers here today.
Sure.
And you mentioned some of the hard skills like conversions and mathematics for
Absolutely.
the sector of life sciences that you've done. And then also those soft skills, like what you're looking for, that the attention to detail is so important, and customer service. So with your background, what would you say would be a good way to include some of those elements into teaching? Or have you had some students come in or employees come in that really were on the mark, and why do you think they had those skills already, such as the math and the conversions?
You know, that's a great question. And I'm sure everybody has had that one story where there's one teacher who has made a very, indelible mark on you, or just left an impression on you. and for whatever reason that may be. I've had that, and I can tell you where I had that was primarily in veterinary school. I have to admit that when I was in vet school, I was, it's not a pretty story, but the bottom line is that I played a little bit too much, let's put it that way. And so I got a little sloppy in my first 2 years of vet school. Perhaps part of the reason was that, you know, after graduating, I never practiced much because my heart wasn't really into it. I was really more focused on business more than anything else. There's a long story why I did veterinary medicine. It's another day. But nonetheless, I remember very clearly where I was on rotation. And so I had to, I was in charge of all these animals. Obviously, there were horses that were in the large animal clinic, and I was going around and, you know, just doing the basics. That's what I should do. And didn't say anything wrong. And one of the professors came in, and he went to one foal who was looking a little bit, you know, not so, this wasn't looking well. He said, well, did you look on this foal? What's wrong with the foal? I said, yeah, I went in there, checked the vitals, and everything seems to be okay. And I don't know exactly what's the problem. Maybe that's something. I don't know what the story is. So guy went in, and he took the chart, and he started again in a very systematic, organized manner, going from A to Z as to how he checked. And the one thing that I did do was I actually was checking where they had put the catheter into his neck. And I just basically tapped on the catheter. But if you properly pay attention to detail, you don't just check where the catheter is and where it entered the skin. You actually want to run your fingers right along the vein. And therefore, if that vein feels what they call ropey, then there is a problem with that vein. I did not pay attention to that. I just paid attention to one aspect. And the doctor said, well, did you feel this vein? And did you see that this was a ropey vein? And I came in and said, wow, oh boy, I missed that. And let me tell you right then and there, it did two things for me. It embarrassed the crap out of me. I can tell you that, number one. But number two is he failed me for that course. He failed me for rotation, which forced me to do another 2 weeks of rotation because of one episode. One! I had to stay after graduation. I was due to graduate, so I was kind of eager to get graduated. And I had to stay for an additional 2 weeks to do another 2-week rotation because of that one episode. And I'm going to tell you one thing. I will never, ever not pay attention to details after that. So I say this to say, when talking to your kids, examples are important. Number two is you are going to have to set that. You're going to have to set the example by showing them. Because the one thing he did was he systematically went through that process and demonstrated to me why the details are so important. And so I've lived that. I've lived that in everything I've done from every single business. And when you do that, you don't miss things because it's the small details that will get you in trouble every single time. So that's all I would say on that.
That's a great story. Yeah, it illustrates the whole thing and makes that much more memorable. I'm going to remember that. So that is it for our questions today. And Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody can see Mark's contact information on this page, and you can follow the companies all across social, so you can follow that company as well. And one of the other just neat aspects of Mark, besides all his stories, his amazing accent, and just being a great person, is that he's spoken with Megan and I about kind of his flexibility, his open mind in some of these positions. So for example, he had I think it was a design position open, and he said, you know, yep, it says full-time, but I'm open to speaking to high schoolers about this who want to kind of intern a little bit, see if this is a right fit, learn a little bit about the job. So everybody's not like that. Mark is, and we've had the chance to meet him today, but there are other people that would be open to that too. So, you know, as you're kind of connecting careers in the life sciences space to what you're doing in class, so that when the kids are like, why do I need this? You have an answer. Just know that there is some flexibility oftentimes within job descriptions. to read into that, and just call in and ask and be ready to say, well, here's what I have, and to move forward from there.
So Kristen, if I could just add to that and make a little bit of a plug, we are actively looking for high school students, anybody who is interested in the more technical side of installation, the person who might want to consider that as a career, whereby if you were prepared during the summers or during holidays to work with us, what we would do is we would pay you to actually shadow our installer, which means you're going to travel. And it's not, all here in Georgia. You're going to have to travel, mostly in the Southeast though. And we would pay you for your time, pay you to travel with them and learn. They would put you to work. You get installation. And so it's an opportunity, if that's something you might be interested in a longer term position, whereby, we are definitely open right now to, we need some good installers. And so we're happy to teach people and guide them and show them best practices if they're interested right now.
And so if so, they should just shoot you an email to start conversations if a teacher has a student, or if one of our young professionals is listening now and thinks this could be something for me.
Great, no problem. That's exactly right.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining today. Thank you, Mark. This was fantastic. We really appreciate your time and your insight. It's so cool to hear about different areas, and installation and the design aspect of this has been really fascinating. So thanks so much for your time here as well. And Megan will be putting this up on our website. So if anyone on this call wants to come back to this presentation and hear another part, or your teacher and you want to use part or all of this in some of your classes, you are welcome to do so. It'll be on our website at georgiabio.org, and you can move out to that and use what you want. So with that, thank you for joining. Mark was number one. We will have more along the line, and have an awesome Friday.
Take care, guys. All the very best.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark.